Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, guys, my name is Edo Sapraja, and today I would like to talk about one of the history in the Australia, and it is about the Indigenous Australians and civil rights movements in 1960s. By the mid 1960s, there was a bunch of group in the Australia that fight for the civil rights and the Indigenous Australians people, and their movements was based of the discrimination that happened in the Australian back time, and also this civil rights movement was growing under the banner of self-determinations, and according to the international law about self-determinations, is about the right of all people to achieve the political status, social, economic, and cultural developments. And based on this group appear, and this group against the racism that happened in the Australians and the Australia. Okay, and these people really these people fight for racism that happened in Australia, because in that time before the 1960s in the Australia, racism happens in a very bad way. While, for the example, there's many aspects and ways that discrimination happen in Australians. For the example, Australian people was determined by national race, skin color, national background, and also gender. And one of the example at that time, there is a specific school for specific people, which is the white residents and the colored people, and the standard for this school are really different. Well, while the white resident having a high standard of school, and the colored people have the poorest standard of school. And not just by the school, the determination that happened in that times can be seen also at the restaurants, transportations, theater, and waiting bus. And for the transportation itself, there's a determination about it, which is there's a specific place to wait the transportations for the white residents and the colored people want. And based on this, the group of Australians people and the indigenous one appear to fight their right as the people of Australia. And there's so many group of Australian that fight for the civil right for the Australian people, such as the Federal Council for Aboriginal Advancements in 1955, who fight for the constitutional change, the equal wage, access to social service benefits of every people in Australia, and the land rights. And there's also the several right roots indigenous organizations that fight for against discriminations and there's also Aboriginal activist by Charlie Perkins, the leader of the Student Action for Aboriginal, or known as SAFA, who fights for the rights of indigenous people and the colored people, Aborigine people, against the white residents. And after their work of campaigns and against the racisms that happened in Australia, in 1967, after 10 years of their campaigns, and finally the Australian governor holding a referendum to change the Australian constitutions, and the changes itself is about the removing the two negative reference to the indigenous people and giving the Commonwealth the power to legislate for Indigenous Australians. And 90% of Australian population vote in favor to change of these constitute, which means that over 90% people agree about the changes, agree about this constitutional change. And for more information about why the racism that happen in Australia, there is one of reason that I found in 1902. One of the Tasmanian member parliament in that time, they dismiss the need of indigenous, the need to include the indigenous people in national census because of a state about there is no scientific evidence that he is, which is refers to the, I don't know, maybe colored people or the Aboriginal people, but and the point is the not the white residents, which is they said that they are not a human being at all. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you very much.